All right, we are going through the open business meeting July 30th, 2024 with the Board of Ada County. This one was one where they actually denied the Powers Butte project, that 2,000-acre solar project where that room was full of people. I had thought that they had continued the public testimony, but it seems like they decided to make a decision anyway beforehand. Of course, denial, but let's just hear what actually went down. It might be interesting.
Pending for quite a while. We've had a couple of hearings on it. We've received a tremendous amount of information. Most recently, a week or two ago, we received a lot of information. It's got a lot of community interest, and so go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good morning, and thank you. This is an item that you.
Oh, you know what? Actually, it might have been from the July 11th hearing here, which I don't think I have covered. So there was a big old hearing at that time, and I haven't reviewed it at that time. So in light of that testimony, you can see here it was like 5 hours long, and just people, railing against it. Now, keep in mind also this is an election year for two of them, two of the three seats. So that likely played into that as well. Could have
initially considered at your May 8th public hearing, then at your July 10th public hearing. In addition to all the exhibits attached to the
that's
original.
The July 10th hearing. But that is the P&Z hearing, so it's probably this one right here. All right.
Staff report, you did receive, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, a substantial amount of additional evidence in advance of each of these public hearings. You also received and considered significant individual testimony at the hearing. So you did table today to allow you adequate time to review all of that information, all the testimony.
Now, just to note that a lot of some of the commentary that I was hearing was that they were expecting Ada County to approve it and then Canyon County to not approve their side. But what ended up happening is Ada County denied it, and I'm not even sure if they're going to bother with the Canyon side of things, since I don't know if you can do one without the other.
Would remind you that the original staff report has a recommendation of approval. So the findings of fact document in draft form that's before you this morning does reflect that recommendation. Would request, if you deem that any changes are necessary to that draft document, or should you vote to deny the application, would request that this be tabled again to an open business meeting to allow staff additional time to either make revisions or prepare the appropriate documents that recommend your decision this morning. So hopefully that sets the stage.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. The hearing has been closed, and so we will not be taking any additional evidence or documentation in today's meeting, but we have had, I think, sufficient time to review all the documentation and the evidence as presented to the board. So I would ask for any kind of a motion or any further discussion.
Well, first of all, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to thank the staff for their excellent work, the development services, all of our staff here at the county that's helped us, me in particular, in putting together our ideas and the data so we can review it. Thanks to the applicant. I mean, they've expressed an interest in helping us here in Ada County address renewable energy and some of the other issues that are important for us here in Ada County and Idaho in particular, and Ada County. So, and then some of the public that's commented are here. But we had, as staff pointed out, 2 days of 2 nights of intensive discussion and a lot of information that was presented by everybody. So I would like to just thank everybody for all of that and for their help in helping us make that decision. And I know I personally, and I know the other two members of the commission, take very seriously this obligation we have to review all this data and make this decision. So with that, that's my introduction. And if anybody else wants to make a statement, I have some more statements I'd like to make as well.
You want to say anything?
Yeah, I'll agree with Commissioner Daly. We had two days of pretty solid hearing. This room was packed both times, and I think the testimony was respectful and orderly, and everybody got to say their piece. I think it may be a record for most people testifying on an issue since I've been elected. Again, I applaud the community for kind of bringing the issues to us in a respectful fashion, and I think we definitely received significant community input and evidence, and I think that has helped shape the debate on this issue. Obviously, solar farms are kind of new to Ada County. We've approved one previously out in the desert. We now have this one. There's possibly some more proposals coming, and so this is, again, kind of a new issue for Ada County that we have to grapple with and decide overall if this is in the best interest of the community and when and how these are implemented. We're learning just as the community is learning, I think.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other comments?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I've taken a lot of time personally on this, and
So the chairman is not up for re-election. This is Commissioner Tom Daly. He's running, and then Ryan Davidson on the other one. They're the two main guys talking. And usually the way dynamics work is they give their statements, and then the Chairman Beck, just kind of follows up and has the final say.
hours of listening and reading material. There are volumes of material, both on this particular project as well as solar in general and renewable energy. So with that, I guess I would take this opportunity just kind of review what, in my mind, I've done in my understanding of the project. Because we have, like I said, the staff has done all the procedural stuff in review. All the procedural information's been and requirements have been met. Staff's done their due diligence in the notices, the public hearings, the public meetings, and all of the rest of it. So I think that, again, solidifies the fact that this community at large, as well as the staff, have done their due diligence. Just review, in my mind, this is a larger project. It's a two-county project, and Ada County is only a small portion of that.
Now, sometimes in how they're talking, they're mindful of the fact that Shell, whatever the companies are, the developers, their attorneys literally are in the audience, and they're going to be using every single word that they use against them. So there is a certain amount of saying things in a way that you know it's going to be in court, and to be able to defend your decision. Him mentioning that, you know, some of the ways that they may question the decision is through procedural grounds. But as you can say, he's you know, emphasizing that the fact that so many people showed up, you know, the procedures were completed to provide sufficient notice.
Project. It's only 1,419 acres right in Ada County. But on that 1,400 acres, the proposal is to have 237,000 solar panels and some other auxiliary things as well. So as I looked at the project and reviewed the material, both and called on some of my experience that I've had myself personally, there are several things that were brought to my attention as I was reviewing the data. One is the potential, as was pointed out by the community as well as my background, potential for noxious weed contamination in an internationally renowned seed growing area, both in Canyon and Ada County. Ada County is obviously our focus, but noxious weeds are critically important in managing good seed growing for the world, because we grow seeds for the entire world, not just for Idaho, not just the United States, but for the entire world. Here in this area, most people don't realize that, and weed seeds in that can contaminate it to a degree that it can degrade the value of weeds or of the seed. The animal grazing underneath the solar panels, I wasn't clear by the data exactly how that was going to be managed as well. The type of animals, the AUMs that would be required, the kind of volume of animals that would be required, and how they would be managed. Estimates of the property value impact wasn't clear to me as well, because there was some data that was presented, and both from here as well as other locations where solar panels are. The impact on the birds of prey area. The birds of prey is very close to this area, and there are 34. This is again an internationally renowned birds of prey protected area. There are 44 species that are there. 1,400 acres is not an insignificant amount of both feeding area as well as just area for those birds. It wasn't clear to me in terms of the questions whether this project, there's a lot of available federal and state land that is not farmland, that also has power lines going through it that have some connectability. It wasn't clear to me whether that had adequately been explored as potential locations for the solar panels. The solar panels are important, but then the solar panels, how do they fit with the Ada County land use maps that designate this as an irrigated agriculture, which according to that, the quote from that is, which is primarily intended for farmland, cropland, vineyards, pastures, orchards, and other low-intensity agricultural uses. The site is currently zoned as rural residential, as well as properties to the north, the south, east, and the west. The west is in Canyon County. All those are designated as rural residential, irrigated agricultural land. And as we know, water, my question that I always ask in development is water availability, and water is one of those things that's important. There's water available on this land. That's why it's usable for agriculture and other purposes, because there's water available. And as we know, water rights are very tenuous in a desert. And as we know, just in this year, up in the Upper Valley, there's over 500,000 acres of irrigated agriculture that was put in jeopery because of question of farmers' water rights. So the water right application of water right is critically important when we consider land use. Our comprehensive plan also requires a sound financial. That had some the funding for this project depends on primarily at this point in time government funding, but there's some private funding as well as potential power sale agreements. Those are all tenuous, and we know even in the news we have overproduction of solar power in California, and they're trying to figure out what to do with the solar power. So those tenuous financial agreements land. Agricultural land that's been identified by NRCS. NRCS has a process of evaluating agricultural land. Every acre of agricultural land in the United States was evaluated by NRCS, and it was pointed out in our discussion. Was brought forward some information from NRCS that this is prime agricultural land, as identified by NRCS. So is its best use for agriculture?
Yeah, normally these statements are not this long. It might be this long, especially because they know they're going to be sued.
Agricultural purposes or for solar panels. With all that in mind, Mr. Chairman, I'm inclined, like I said, after hours of studying, reading, reviewing, considering all the aspects of this project, it's my opinion that sufficient evidence has been presented to support the application under the.
So just as a reminder, state law requires that any sort of land use decisions, whether positive or negative, approval or being declined, cannot be just arbitrary. They need to have a justification, and I think he did pretty well laying out. Now, of course, the attorneys on the Shell, Exxon, or whatever the oil company side of things, they're the ones who the solar company is a subsidiary of the oil companies. They're going to be combing through all of his words and trying to use that against to overturn the decision. If they choose to do so, we'll see.
Ada County comprehensive plan, future land use plan, and Ada County. That's my current analysis. So I would accept the discussion of the other two council members and see if I'm off base.
Okay, any other discussion? Go ahead.
Well, I'll give my comments. Obviously, this is a difficult issue because you're talking about private property rights versus the health and safety of the community, and it's a difficult balancing act. And for me, I'm strongly in support of private property rights. I suppose the issue comes in when something is requested that requires a variance. So at that point, you're asking for it's literally a special privilege as defined in our code, and we have to take certain steps to evaluate if one particular person should get the special privilege to develop something that's outside the ordinance for that particular zone. And the certain factors that we have to look at are whether the variance relieves an undue hardship due to the characteristics of the site. The variance shall not grant a special right or privilege that is not otherwise allowed in the base district, and the variance shall not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare. One of the things I take strongly into consideration, and I always ask this when I'm presented with a variance, is how do your neighbors feel about it? Most variances we get are tantamount to somebody wanting to build a shed or a garage that's larger than what's allowed in code.
Welcome you
acreage.
to
And
tonight's
in the vast
public
majority of those
hearing.
cases, the one or two neighbors on either side consent to it. They don't care. It's not an issue. This is obviously quite a bit different than a shed. This is a very large project that is directly affecting a lot of neighbors, both who live beside it or adjacent to it, or the neighbors who even live farther away who are going to have to be affected by the change to the view and to the character of the neighborhood. So again, we had significant testimony, and I would say it was near universally opposed by the neighbors. We may have had one neighbor, maybe two, that testified in favor, not including the obviously the property owners. That was pretty significant to me, hearing that much opposition to this plan, hearing about how it would change the character of the neighborhood, just a project of that magnitude. We also have to make an evaluation whether or not the conditional use should be allowed. Some of the criteria we have to consider again are whether the proposed use shall be detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare. The proposed use shall not create undue adverse impacts on surrounding properties. The proposed use is consistent with the applicable comprehensive plan. There's about 6 or 7 other criteria. But just going over those 3, I was concerned about the effects to the public health, safety, or welfare. I think there was a lot of testimony on health issues, safety issues. Some of it was persuasive, other was just hypothetical. Every hearing we get, there's concerns with safety, and a lot of them are very much overblown. But I think when I kind of look at the welfare of the community, just changing the character of that farming community, we did hear a lot of testimony that people felt that they would be negatively impacted. The undue adverse impacts on surrounding properties. I feel we heard testimony from surrounding properties that they would suffer undue adverse impacts regarding their crops, things of that nature. And also our comprehensive plan, which talks about preservation of agricultural land. Even though this project is purporting to have sheep grazing and various things grown in between the rows of the solar panels, I'm not sure that, for me, truly meets the definition of preserving agricultural land. So those were my concerns. Again, this was a tough issue because I think we do need to encourage business and encourage solar development. And again, this board is not anti-solar. We've approved a solar project for this very same company, but out in the desert where there are not a lot of residents, there's no farmland. Again, we're going to be, I'm sure, looking at other potential solar projects, possibly one by the prison, others out in the desert, which I think obviously is the appropriate place for those. But just thinking about this, changing the character of that CUNA community, the agricultural community, I'm just not thinking that it is a...
That is a very strong point that they've already approved other projects out in the desert, just not in prime agricultural areas. And regarding the grazing for animals underneath solar panels, well, you kind of need solar energy to grow crops, and you also need to irrigate it and take care of it. So that whole thing is a cluster to try and get that to work.
a good fit overall for that community. I'll close with that.
Okay, thank you. Well, does anyone have a motion?
Well, Mr. Chairman, based on what the staff indicated we need to do in this situation, would be to, do we need to have the motion deny it and then table it to 2, or do we need to just table it for revised finding of fact?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Daly, I would recommend that you make the decision and then table for the revised documents. We would recommend August 13th open business meeting.
So 2 motions or in 1 motion?
One motion.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, then I move that we reject application 202400163-V-CU-MSP, Powers Butte Energy Center, LLC, and table the table this for consideration, provide staff the opportunity for revised findings, facts, and conclusions of law, and table it until August 15th, or 13th, you said? Until the August 13th meeting. Yeah.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, is there further discussion?
Well, I'll just say, again, this was a tough issue, and I know it was for the community to grapple with this, and it's my sincere hope that the community can come together and move forward on this as a community. It's my sincere hope that the landowner can sell the property for as much as he can possibly get in the market. Again, we wish Powers Butte all the best, and I think they conducted themselves well, and if they have future solar projects, I hope they and other solar companies do take into consideration that people move to Idaho for a certain way of life, and people don't really want to see that changed, and I think as a board, that's something that, at the end of the day, we have to take the will of the people into consideration.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just to amplify
Go
what
ahead.
Commissioner Davidson said, this is not an indictment on solar. We would encourage as was pointed out, we have approved solar projects, and solar is, I think, an important component part of our overall energy future. But considering everything, we need to consider all the facts and take into consideration all the ramifications, and that's what we've done here. So
Okay. Well, it seems we need to take a vote then, and the motion is to deny the project and table it until the 13th of August for revised findings, facts, and conclusions of law. So with that, I'll call for the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. You see, Commissioner Beck, he's not running for any office. So, his colleagues already said enough about it. Yeah, I mean, that looking at it from the developer's point of view, Savanon, they're going to have additional projects, and they already have had other projects that have been approved. They may not necessarily go scorched earth and go lawsuit, at the same time while they're trying to get other projects approved. So they may come back and try to modify it to address, the concerns. So now think about it. The commissioners said specifically what their issues are. So now in their next proposal, if they decide to proceed on this again, the same project, they can address those issues. One thing that you may or may not remember, referring back to some of the land that was involved in this deal, I did do some research, and it was linked to Bill Gates, some of Bill Gates's organizations, or that he's involved with, or with his money. So Bill Gates, basically one of his associated organizations, sold it off to Savanon or one of their related entities. And likely, well, we don't know what sort of, business deals they might have had on the back end. LLCs are, opaque. It's not like it's like Bill Gates to Exxon or something like that. It's, these are conglomerations. So he might have gotten a share from the other company. You don't know how kind of like the business deals go. That's the nature with these companies, and obviously with companies like in Wyoming that are under veil, you don't know exactly how their structures are set up. So anyway, so I think that's pretty much it. They talked about some other
And
things. Let me
did that,
see, there's other
was the
items.
causation for that a change in management, or
I think a change in management as well as staffing allocations. I believe they were able to provide the additional resources necessary to catch up with
This
their.
is just a standard open business meeting. I think that was pretty much it. I did look through the agenda, and July 30th. Just don't know what I did with that tab, but I don't think it was important otherwise. Oh, here it is. Found it. All right, so just to make sure, yeah, I didn't see anything that really popped out. So just double check it. Everything was approved. It didn't seem like there was any nays. Yeah, no oppositions. And I do a word search for the word nay. Nope. So that's it. All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.